Ladies and gentlemen, come right in and sit right down, and we'll talk about a Navy corpsman named Danny Thomas, who was on Iwo Jima. I met Danny in Irving, Texas, 30 years ago. He was mentioned quite a bit in the book, the best-selling book, Flags of Our Fathers by James Bradley. If you read the book, which I would say Flags of Our Fathers should be read by every high school student, mandatory, before they graduate, to understand the price of peace and the sacrifices that are made. It's an outstanding book. And Danny was called one of the buttermilk twins because he and another fellow named Chick were both Navy corpsmen, and they were both too young to drink alcohol. They could go fight, but they couldn't drink alcohol. So when they'd go to a bar, some waitress would say that she would bring them buttermilk, or that was the big joke. So they were called the buttermilk twins. Danny told me when they invaded Iwo Jima, he said they got into those Amtraks inside the mothership, and they loaded up, and he said he was the second boat in line. He said the first Amtrak went out and hit the water, and he said it just sank. It just disappeared, and nobody came out of it. And he said, and he's thinking, we're next. But when they hit the water, they floated, and they went in and they hit the beach. He told me when he hit the beach, he saw Chick, his best friend, the other buttermilk twin. And he said Chick was looking at him, and he said he was just sticking out of the beach from right here. And he said Chick looked at him and he waved at him. And then he said as he ran past Chick, he realized that Chick had been blown up, and everything from his guts and all that was just spread out in a V behind him. And he said at that point that Chick just fell over. And Danny said it was so hot that, you couldn't stop. You had to keep moving. He talked about the volcanic ash, and Danny was haunted by it. My ex-wife and I went to visit him one evening, and we went and ate Mexican food, and then we went back to his house, and he entertained us, and he talked to me about Iwo Jima. And it got dark, and we told him, well, it was time to leave. And Danny says, no, I don't want you to leave. He said, I don't like to be at home alone by myself at night. He says, that's when the dreams come. He said, I can't sleep. And he said, and I sweat through my T-shirt. And Danny said, it's the senses. He said, I can hear it and I can see everything, but it's the smell that gets me. He says, I can still smell the sulfur of the island and the cordite from the shells and the death. He said that the stench of death was everywhere. He said, in the middle of the night, I have these terrible dreams, and I get up and I go to the faucet in the sink. He says, I wash my nose out to try and get that smell from the island out of my nose. He says, but I just can't get rid of it. It just haunted him. And so Danny was lucky enough to go on the one time a year tour, I think, that we're allowed to go to Iwo Jima. President Nixon gave Iwo Jima back to the Japanese, I believe, in 1968. Danny flew in to Iwo Jima, and he said when he got off the plane, Steven Spielberg's crew grabbed him and put him in a Humvee or a golf cart or something like that. And he said they drove all over the island. And Danny was, talking to him and telling him about what he remembered and what he saw. And Danny told me when they got to the beach where he invaded, he asked the Spielberg crew to leave him alone. And he said he climbed down the hill to the beach, and he went out, and he said to the beach right where he said he figured it was about where Chick had been hit. And he had some possessions that were Chick's. And he said he dug a hole in the sand, or the lava sand, and he put those in there and covered them up. And he said when he did, a ray of sun, he said it was a cloudy day, and Danny told me that a ray of sunshine hit right where he had just buried Chick's items. And he said when he looked up at the sky from where this ray of sunshine was, he said 3 white birds were flying. And he said that ray of sunshine followed them. He told me ever since then, he doesn't have those terrible dreams. But he had one dream that was the same, It was in black and white. Excuse me. And he said that he's on the beach and somebody's screaming, Corpsman, Corpsman, Corpsman. And he's running around everywhere and he can't find this wounded Marine. He's just going crazy trying to find this wounded Marine, but it's not to be, he can't find him. So that's the nightmare that he ended up with.